Welcome back to ADHD Realities. I'm your host, Leanne Borneman, sexologist and certified sex therapist, the podcast where we talk all things ADHD and sexuality, ways to work with your ADHD brain and not against it. Today's episode is definitely a little different, and honestly, it's so good. I'm joined by the incredible Sarah Silverstein, somatic sexologist, Yoni mapping practitioner, and fellow ADHDer for a conversation that weaves together sexuality, sensory experiences, and the power of reconnecting to our bodies through therapeutic Yoni massage. If you've ever heard of Yoni massage before or think it sounds a little out there, please just stay with me on this one. This episode is filled with vulnerability, laughter, nerdy anatomy facts, and real talk about pleasure, body-based healing, and ADHD-specific barriers that make connection and intimacy just trickier, but not impossible. I do want to provide a quick heads up. We do talk about the G-spot in this episode. Please remember, everyone's anatomy is different. If your body doesn't respond in that way, or you've never experienced that type of orgasm, you're not broken. It doesn't mean anything is wrong. Bodies vary, pleasure is diverse, and part of our work is unlearning the myth that there's only one right way to feel good. So take a deep breath, settle in, and maybe grab your anatomical clitoris model if you've got one, because we definitely do. Let's dive into this really powerful and supportive conversation with Sarah. Welcome back to ADHD Realities. I have the great Sarah Silverstein. And today we are going to be talking about Yoni and how this can kind of show up in our day-to-day lives, how it can be a benefit, and how this has anything to do with ADHD. So I'm not going to waste any time. Sarah, do you want to introduce yourself to everybody?
Yes. Hello. My name is Sarah. I am a somatic sexologist, a therapeutic Yoni massage or mapper. I'm an aura photographer, a breath worker, you name it. I'm into it. I am, ex-corporate life and then was thrown into the wellness world and have been at this for the last 10 years. And I love it more than anything because helping people has always been a part of who I am. And now I get to do it for a living, which is really fun.
That is fun. And for anybody listening, I actually connected with Sarah on Instagram. I'm going to say like maybe almost a year now, I feel like it's going on. And originally you followed me. You were like, love your content. And then I followed you and I'm like, girl, love your content. What is this? This is so interesting. And I found out that you also have ADHD, and you and I have been able to be a little bit more intimate in regards to our experiences. And I am just so happy that I connected with you. So, of course, it made sense to invite you here today to talk more about this interesting yet it seems to be a possible outlet for empowering and supportive interactions in not just our experiences via erotica, sexuality, but you also were talking a little bit about trauma. So I know we're going to get into all of that. But before we do, I guess the best place to start is what the hell is yoni massage? Like, what are we talking about here? Please explain it.
For sure, for sure. So if you don't know what the word yoni is, it's basically how we refer to the female genitalia. It's often translated into the word like sacred space, our source of life, but it comes from Sanskrit. So that basically encompasses the internal and external parts of the female genitalia. So first part, yoni, next part, massage or mapping. So they're kind of used interchangeably in this realm. But if we're thinking of like massage is the easiest thing to understand, if you are somebody who gets knots in your back like me, then you probably go and you see a masseuse and they put their hands on you and they help move stuff around. So I basically do that, but on yonis instead. So it is a non-sexualized massage of your body, vulva, and vagina. And basically, it is a super spiritual practice that connects you back into your physical body and can also help kind of move gunk that's kind of hanging out in there. I regularly will tell people what I do and watch their face kind of scrunch up. And
Like
they're like,
mine,
wait,
it's like, ooh.
they're like, wait, you go internal? I'm like, yes, yes, I do. And they're regularly like, oh my gosh, that's like gynecological exam. And I'm like, oh, no, 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 not like that at all. It's very much therapeutic. It is not clinical. It is a way for your body to learn how to relax. But more importantly, in this kind of exchange, if you are receiving it from a practitioner, I'm not demanding anything from you. sexually,
Mm.
emotionally, anything. You get to fully receive. And I feel like women and vulva havers generally don't allow themselves to lean into that kind of experience of where it's like, oh, you can touch my breasts in a non-sexualized way and I don't have to have any sort of reaction. I can just be like, whoa, this is what this feels like. So I provide an opportunity for vulva havers to have this unique and rare experience to learn more about their bodies and their pleasure and what's kind of been going on in their like physical body versus like what we're telling ourselves in our
Hmm.
mind versus our body.
That's really interesting because as you were telling me about this, I am sure that there are other countries that do this, and this is very normalized in other countries, definitely for sure. And I think one of the things that was very interesting as you were saying that, I was like, in our country at least, the United States, for anyone listening, not knowing where we're from, it's so hard to not see that as a sexualized experience. And I can only imagine how hard it is to kind of lean into that and, you know, have this experience and feel comfortable and safe with it as well. Like
Yeah.
you're going through so many challenges through societal and what is and isn't. And I'm sure people listening to that description probably had their own like, huh? What? You're doing it and it's not like for porn. It's not for like this. It's just for therapeutic purposes. What?
Exactly.
So interestingly, then I think this is a great place to talk about. I know that in the field of science, there are so many areas of exploration and engagement and dynamics that could be so helpful for people that research just has not gotten to yet. There's so many gaps in literature. So, can you just speak a little bit, if you have some insights on where science lies with this? Is this something that science has caught on to yet? Is there anything related to this that science does support? Like, can you give just a little insight there?
Definitely. So, I mean, typically with female bodies, they're not studied quite well yet. Like we're still kind of scratching the top of the surface here,
Yep.
which is unbelievable because we've existed for so long, and that shatters my heart. But there are other studies that can kind of link back into it. So if we're thinking around like the idea of manual therapy when it's coming into pelvic floor therapy, that's been studied for a long time. So that's very like pelvic floor therapy. It was something that you would go to if you're experiencing vulvodynia or vaginismus, or if you're having any sort of pain or discomfort in your vulva and your vagina. And then you go to these people and they treat it in a clinical way. So they'll be like, okay, here are some dilators that you can try using for this, or I'm going to go in and we're going to do something very similar. But since it's a clinical kind of standpoint, it doesn't get into that like deep emotional vulnerability kind of side. You can still kind of have your walls up. But I was reading before we got onto this how there was a study that showed that massage can drop cortisol in your body by 32%.
Mm.
And that is a very fun fact. So if you can massage a part of your body and have that decrease, then we can, have more of those feel good emotions if we're not in that stress kind of response. So
Yeah.
same thing can kind of happen down in your yoni also, which I think is really helpful. And there was also a journal that published something. Oh, I don't remember who it was, but they were showing that myofascial release can significantly reduce the pain in your pelvic floor. So it's like, okay, it is slowly starting to come up. There's not enough, evidence here on this yet. But if you have a tissue in your body that is experiencing numbness or pain or discomfort in general, we never turn our backs from it. We're like, okay, great. What's going on here? What's the underlying
Yeah.
thing? What's happening? And that's the same thing that gets to happen in our yonis. And unfortunately, especially in the States, it's such a taboo topic that people really shy away from, or they keep it secret to themselves. I often think back to when I was going to lose my virginity and everyone told me it was going to hurt. And
Mm.
we supplant that idea into people's minds at such a young age that then when people are having sex later in life and it hurts, they just take it as normal.
Yeah.
However, it isn't normal. It isn't okay. It means that there's something else going on there. And if we can bring some relief by just simple touches, either by yourself or by a trained facilitator or practitioner, then we can really start to kind of move the needle in the realm of like, oh, wow, we can have agency over our bodies and our pleasure.
Yeah, no, that makes total sense. And I'm hoping one day you and many others who engage and practice in this area for people have the science to back you up in more powerful ways because it is hard. And I mean, I always obviously am the type of person that science is like gold, but I also do understand that we have gaps. I mean, I see it right now with the research I'm doing. There's gaps in what I'm doing. It doesn't mean the experience isn't necessarily real just because science hasn't taken the lens to look.
Yeah.
But we do still have to be mindful that if indeed it's not working for you, maybe, or maybe you're struggling with that engagement, that's okay. Right?
Yes.
Like this is really then more about educating, hearing about this information and deciding like, does this resonate with you? Could you explore this to enhance yourself in a multitude of ways? And so now I'm going to actually kind of, I guess, shift focus and bring the ADHD lens into this. How in the work that you do, because I'm assuming just from our conversations in the past, you work with a lot of people with ADHD, don't you?
Yes, definitely. And I think at least this has been my experience with all the modalities that I work in is I'm led to them because there's something off with me. And then I'm like, oh, can this be helpful? Like, is this going to be beneficial? And then it's funny because I don't ever really talk about the fact that I have ADHD, or I don't talk about, my long history with alcoholism or, assault or anything. But it's like these
Mm,
people tend to find me and then they're like, well, wait, well, what did you do that helped you get to this point? And for me, at least in my experience, I was a breathwork facilitator far before I ever got into this work. And I read The Body Keeps a Score. And I was like, oh, wow, if our bodies can hold trauma in these different ways, how do we start to move them? How do we start to let go of them? And my ADHD brain is like a ping pong ball. So it's like going in a million different directions. But when I found that breath work or utilizing my breath and meditation helped quiet everything down so I could understand what was going on, then that kind of energetic movement was possible. And the same thing happens in Yoni massage, of where it's like, all right, I'm somebody who couldn't feel pleasure with a partner because everything had to be perfect. Like
mm,
if there was a scent that was off, I was out of the situation. If there was music going on that I hated, the ability for me to feel pleasure was going to be non-existent. And then it was also because I had a lot of numbness and pain in that area that I hadn't told anyone about. So I'm a
mm,
secret keeper by nature. And then I was like, well, if I'm looking for help and I'm looking to expand here, what could that do? And I found, at least in my own solo practice with Yoni massage, once I understand my body and I can understand the sensations that are happening in it, I can be more present and that's
mm.
available. But before, I would tell my doctor, my like gyno, that I had numbness here, and he was like, "Well, that'll change one day." And I was like, that can't be the response. Like that can't be it. Or like, oh, well, I'm having pain at the entrance of my vaginal canal. And he was just like, all right, well, maybe try dilators. I don't know. See you later. And I was like, wow, you really don't care.
Yeah.
And so if I'm layering the fear around talking about that, and then also the fear around being a neurodivergent person in this world, like I'm going to be debilitated and take no action. So I'm thankful that I came across this kind of modality when I lived overseas, because I got to study with a practitioner from Australia. It is far more talked about over there. They are way more open. Sex work
Yeah.
is legal there, so it's very different. But I was like, oh, if I'm struggling with paying attention and staying focused, or being able to even keep interest in something long enough, even though it is a pleasurable experience, I can't be alone. Somebody
Yeah.
else has to be on board with me.
Yeah, no, and I think also as you were saying all that, one of the key things I was also hearing is yeah, you've learned like what your triggers are, what are your sensory concerns, and you're aware from all the reflections from engaging, which then it goes back to, at least for me, the importance of self-compassion,
Yeah.
right? Like when you can really be able to tap into who you are, how you identify in your partner in relationships and sex and all of that, like that's great. And what I'm also hearing is that when you have that, this is a technique and approach that can really help, correct me if I'm wrong, but almost like ground, recenter, give you, maybe you can add more to that. I want to make sure I'm understanding this because this is so new to me. And I'm like, my brain's going,
You're
ooh, I
actually
like,
picking up on it. Look at that. And
yeah.
I always think it's interesting when things kind of seamlessly start to click that way, because we often think like the solution needs to be bigger than it is. But realistically, I found that with the lack of education when it comes to understanding our own anatomy is generally the problem. And in the same way that like if anyone had clocked that I had ADHD when I was a kid, the rest of my life could have been very different. I could have had
Mm,
different solutions to, figure out how to work within what I have going on rather than feeling like a fish out of water all the time. But this is a perfect way of understanding your own body. Like I just had a session last week with somebody who had no idea where her G spot was, and she was trying to have internal orgasms with her partner. And I was like, but if you don't know where it is, baby girl, how are you going to access it?
Yeah. And
And
I
that,
also, yeah, and to add too, even with that, everyone's anatomy is also very different. And so, like, even though a lot of women can indeed experience that different level orgasm, again, research has not tapped into this area. There's a lot of gaps here. There is like so many different ways people can technically have orgasms. And this is from like just he said, she said kind of thing. There's very little like confirmation research on it. But like at the end of the day, when something doesn't actually work for you, that doesn't mean you're broken. That doesn't mean you can't find a different alternative, right? Like, and I think that's one of the things I always think of with the G spot, because I've also met so many people that don't necessarily know how to achieve that leveled orgasm.
yeah.
And it doesn't necessarily mean maybe that you're not fully in tune. There could
Yeah.
be other variables there too. But I love that this approach gives you an extra level of support for you to explore,
Yes.
where the disconnect may be for you if you're struggling there. Does that make
Yes,
sense?
100%. I feel like the way that sex and pleasure has been portrayed has been this thing that's just achievable for everyone.
Yeah.
And that's why I felt so broken and I faked it for so long because I was like, "Oh, well, I'm not doing it right."
Mm-hmm.
And then when I had my first yoni massage, I was like, "Oh, wow, my G spot has some sensitivity, but my A spot had more sensitivity." And at that point, I had no idea what that even was in my body, or let alone like what the entire clitoral complex looks like. So I was like, oh, here I am expecting to only receive pleasure in this one area in this one very specific way when it is such a broader experience. And if we were just given that information to understand our own bodies and how we can function with them, where could we be?
Yeah. And I think also what you're saying too is like if we were given the permission and the empowerment to want to explore instead of also being given this book of like, here, this is what you're supposed to do. And if it doesn't work, well, you suck. Like
Yeah.
there's something wrong with you. And I
Yeah.
love this. And so right now, like my head's going, right? So something I work with a lot with clients who are trying to re-engage in their sex life, their playtime, is this concept of sensuality.
Hmm.
And I know this is something that you've spoken about prior, but I would love you to touch upon this topic in terms of like why sensuality is so important when it comes to pleasure, exploration, self-regulation, the connection, all the things you've already talked about.
Yeah, I mean, I think sensuality needs to come into play so much more with us ADHDers who find it hard to stay focused.
Mm.
And it's also just sensuality is so much easier to talk about than sexuality because people generally like have their walls come up and they're like, oh, nope, we're done here. And I'm like, okay, cool. Our senses, let's utilize our five basic senses to understand what brings you joy and pleasure in your body. What's the easiest way to tap into that? And if you don't know how to access that outside of the bedroom, it's probably going to be a little bit more challenging to do so inside of the bedroom. And for me, I'm somebody who like I can shut down immediatamente. Like
Mm-hmm.
if I'm told like, oh my gosh, well that didn't actually feel good, and I was trying to do something good for my partner, and I wasn't embodying, I wasn't focused, my nervous system is dysregulated. Man, the whole night's gonna be ruined. But if I take a moment to be like, okay, can I focus on the sense of touch? What is my body touching right now? How does that make me feel in this moment? If I focus on my breath and allow myself to just breathe, like, okay, cool, let me slowly inhale and see what kind of delicious scent is in my room so I can attach onto that rather than like, oh my God, is that my partner's armpit? Like, what's going on here? And just finding those ways that, like, okay, what does feel good for you? How can you lean into it in that moment? So then you can be kind of centered and focused rather than scatterbrained me, who
Mm-hmm.
sometimes I like that, to be fair. Sometimes I'm like, okay, it's
Fair.
gonna be a wild, spicy night. But other times I'm like, man, I just want to feel like I can feel really good right now. And I don't want it to feel so hard.
Yeah. And I like the idea of like picking up on your senses. It reminds me a lot of sensate focus. That is for anyone listening. It's a leaned in therapeutic intervention in the sex therapy realm. It's a way for us to re-engage, connect to sex and playtime without any anxiety or any of the barriers that are coming up for you. But something very interesting most people don't know is that sensate focus is actually neurotypically driven. It's not set up for a neurodivergent in mind. And that makes what you just said so much more important, like knowing what are your connections to these senses. So are they a barrier or are they a comfort? Because I love when you said like smell that yummy candle or something in your room. That made me go straight to that. Like, well, you need to know that that scent is something that calms you, or that scent is something you actually like, versus being in a room that is not set up for you at all. Like when you are tapping into that senses piece that you're talking about. And I love that. I love that this is something I'm going to assume talk a lot with the people you work
Yes.
with.
Yes. Well, and I do a lot of like sex coaching before we get to yoni massage because it's such an intimate thing. So it's like we need to have some kind of rapport going back and forth. And I just started asking like, oh, are you a little neurospicy? Like, what's up? Where are we at? Just so I know, because I know if I'm talking to someone who's more neurotypical, I'll be able to be like, okay, cool, you can do X, Y, and Z, and then we'll be able to kind of streamline that. But if I'm working with somebody who has, more of an ADHD brain like me, I'm gonna like, okay, we gotta slow this right on down. We have to find actionable things that we can do little bit by little bit rather than kind of overwhelming with everything all at once and then being like, well, I'm not gonna do it at all. And I found, especially, I had this wonderful, like, we had like the same kind of brain. So I was so excited to work with her. And then I realized, oh, I'm really challenging because I jump in a million different directions. And I was like, oh, wow, I'm going to have to help her stay grounded and focused here. What tools can I use to kind of lean into that? How can we, help her nervous system balance before ever getting to hands-on work? Because it's such an intimate thing.
Mm-hmm.
And again, if it's not a sexualized scenario and it is just a therapeutic thing, it's not like I'm trying to set the mood or anything. It's like, no, 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 we're simply trying to help you allow yourself to be present and be here. So then eventually you can translate that over into feeling more pleasure in your
Mm,
sexualized scenarios.
fair. And I think what jumps into my head too is like knowing that there is a different experience for individuals when we're talking about like sensations, where you have people that enjoy soft touch and then people that maybe need more intense sensations, like the harder touch. So when we're talking about like slow pressure, slow, because I'm still thinking massage, right? Like this is where I'm thinking, I don't even know what question I'm trying to ask here. Maybe you understand where I'm going here. Maybe not. It's totally okay. Um, I think to myself is like, how do you work around that within? I guess I think I just answered my own question because I'm thinking now deep tissue massage versus soft massage. Like
Yes.
these are conversations you have. I'm going to stop talking and I'm going to throw it onto you. Please
I
feel free to nerd out.
I love watching you process through that. And so that is actually why I wanted to kind of lean away from calling it yoni massage because I didn't want people thinking that they were coming in for a deep tissue massage on their vulva, because that's aggressive. And the idea of like yoni mapping is also like we're mapping out all the different parts in your body. So I'm going to pull up my wonderful little plushie, who I love more
Love
than
it.
anything. And so basically, like when I'm talking to people about it and we're figuring out like what kind of pressure feels good for them, also I have found a lot of vulva havers are not good at asking for what they want in that kind
Mhm.
of regard. They're like, oh, I'll just take whatever I'm getting. And I'm like, no, 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 we're not doing that. And I always tell my husband, I'm like, I'm different every day. Hormonally, I am different every day, meaning the kind of touch I'm going to want is going to be different every day. So now he knows to ask,
Yeah.
what kind of touch do you want? What kind of touch?
Mm.
So when I'm with a client, or if I also do these virtually, so if like you're in the comfort of your own home, I say, what kind of touch do you want today? What does that look like? And if they're like, I don't know, I'm like, let's explore, let's see what happens. So before we get to, vulva time, we'll just do it on their hand where I'll be like, okay, how does this feel? How does this feel? And do you feel comfortable enough to say during the massage, oh, I actually need something different. I need this to happen instead. And so we work through that first. But then otherwise, when we're on a vulva, it's we're not going in and like, oh yeah, here we go. It's like, no, no, no. We're looking for pleasure, pressure, pain, and numbness in every part as we're mapping out the entire yoni. So then at the end, that person can go and look and be like, okay, I was in my luteal cycle. These are where all of my pleasure, pressure, pain, and numbness points were. This is what this means. And I could say, hey, I needed more pressure here. I needed less pressure here. Oh, the bottom part of my pelvic bowl felt really numb. So we did more pressure there. My G spot felt really activated. So we did less pressure there. But in sexualized scenario, I might want more to achieve an orgasm. The point of a therapeutic yoni massage or yoni mapping session is not orgasm. It simply
Mhm.
isn't, because that would be pretty wild if that could happen. It does happen every now and then, but again, it's not a sexualized scenario. So it's coming down to how are you listening to your body? And we want to make sure that everything feels online. And that's what we're doing. We're bringing more blood flow to the yoni. We're allowing that tissue to be like, man, I was dormant for a bit. But now here I am. And how much more can you feel after that? So I always say it's a practice. It's not like we
Mhm.
do this once and then you're done. I need these humans to go home and continue to practice on themselves now that they understand what's going on in their own bodies. And also then kind of connecting your brain to your body. So much of the way that we treat things here is neck up. And what I loved about living in Southeast Asia for as long as I did was their neck down. And it's like
Mm.
listening to the wisdom of that body. And if I hadn't spent 4 years there, I wouldn't have been tuned into that, you know?
Fair. And I
And
think like two things came up in my head as you were talking about that. And I don't know if anyone else thought of this too as they're listening to this. How the fuck do you do this virtually? That was like the first thing I was like, wait a minute, we're not in person. You're doing this virtually. Please
well,
explain.
so to my knowledge, so there are sexological body workers that do this work to find orgasm. There are heaps and heaps of them available in the States. To my knowledge, the realm of therapeutic yoni massage or mapping individuals that are in the States is less than 50. So, and my personal teacher has trained two of us. So it's few and far between. And also finding the person that you want to do this work with is
Mm,
also very different.
I can
I
only
am very
imagine.
much like feet on the ground, practical gal, very type A plus, like just kind of over the top. And I always say, before anyone ever books anything, we're going to chat because if my energy is too much for you, you're not going to trust me, and I'm going to help you find somebody who will. So if that means like the person I worked with last week lives in Georgia, and she was like, I'm not going to be able to make it to Philly, and I said, oh my God, that's so fine. Well, we can do it in this way instead. And she was like, that's going to work. And I said, yeah, of course. So it's up to the human if they want to have their camera on like their genitals or not. But otherwise, I talk them through. We go on the jaw, throat, breasts. We do a non-sexualized breast massage, which I feel like humans with breasts should just
Yeah.
do anyways, as I
Mm,
grab mine. And we
fair.
go down to womb, and then we start to focus in on the yoni itself. And we go pubic mound, outer labia, inner labia. We go through everything, and I use my words really clearly. So I'm like also a poet, and so I like to be like, all right, I'm going to intentionally use my words, and this is how I'm going to have you touch yourself. And we have an entire anatomy part before we ever get into it, where you're doing a yoni gaze. So you're identifying, oh, this is where my clit is. This is what my shaft is. Oh, this is where my perineum is. I didn't even know what it was, and
Mm,
pleasure could be available there. How wild! And then they know, which is the best because we always know our body's the best. And so
mhm.
we give ourselves that opportunity, like, okay, cool. No, this feels okay. This feels safe. You have more agency over your body in that way. And then I'm just like your loving cheerleader on the side, taking copious amounts of notes. So then you can read through it later and be like, oh, that's where that is. And if you have a partner, then you can show them exactly what you kind of want some more attention with. So you can 100% do it all manually with your hands. You can have a little toy, like a little pelvic wand tool. But it's a 3 hour experience. So we spend a lot of time together and we go into all of the nooks and crannies, and anything that comes up, we don't push forward. So that's something that I often get with humans where they're like, oh, well, what if we treat the like the internal vagina part like a clock? And they're like, well, what if we don't get all the way through? And I'm like, then we get to where we go, but then you're going to know how to get there the rest of your way. But
Mm.
like if you have something come up at the 2 o'clock point where it's triggering an old memory, an experience or something, and you need to talk that out, that needs to be moved at that moment. So we're going to honor that. It's less of the push forward, we have to complete this thing,
Mhm.
and it's more like let's trust our bodies a little bit more.
And you know, it's so funny as you're telling us. I mean, that's not funny. That's really important stuff. Like, this is okay. People who are listening, we both got ADHD. I have just, oh, you're in good company, people. When you were talking about that though, like I thought of like, you know how a lot of sex therapists and sexologists when they work with women or vulva owners and we're talking about getting familiar with our bodies and they do the mirror exercise, like you should really like actually look because most people don't. I'm like thinking everything that you're talking about is like the mirror on steroids. Like this is like the intro to your vulva slash vagina.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's so exciting to hear that there's a level of like outsource here for somebody to truly tap in if you feel comfortable doing this because like this goes back to self-awareness is hard for us ADHDers, right? Like we have a deficit there. So in the moment, that already is a barrier, right? Like we're so much better after the fact. Like
Yeah.
I can reflect so good after the fact because that's how my brain works. But when you don't know these parts of your body, you'll never be able to reflect. You'll
Oh,
never be able to tap in.
no.
And so, like, knowing this is like, whew, this is great stuff. I'm totally nerding out by this.
Yeah.
But like, I think to myself too, as you're talking about this, and I don't know if you have the answer to this because I know you're not necessarily like an ADHD expert. You know what you need to know about ADHD. You have ADHD yourself. You always have an ADHD lens with what you know when you're working with people. So if you don't know the answer, understand that's totally okay. But I'm curious just from your own experience and the experience of working with individuals who do have ADHD, like what are the pros here? Like what are the things that Yoni massages and understanding this whole area can be of a benefit for an ADHDer.
Yeah, definitely. So I found, at least for me, right? So I can only kind of talk about me and the humans that
Fair. That works.
because the lack of scientific everything. But when I'm thinking about it in this kind of way is if your ADHD manifests like mine does, where I overanalyze everything, I question everything, I'm looking for external validation or solutions for my internal nonsense, or where I'm just kind of like, oh, I'm not doing it right. I'm never going to have a normal brain. Um, there's no such thing as normal, and our bodies are going to guide us in that way, and if we don't take the time to start to understand them, then how are we going to make any kind of forward progress? And since I'm somebody who can be taken out of an experience so quickly, or I'm constantly running lists in my head, what I then do, like in a therapeutic yoni massage, I'm like, okay, great, I'm at 3 o'clock, so I'm going to go to 4 o'clock, I'm going to just see what happens, and then I'm going to take that information when I'm with my partner and see, oh, is this more pleasurable today? What does this look like? Does this position feel different? How am I feeling in my body? But more into the realm of like, I need this to quiet. And I found when I wasn't focused on I'm not doing it right or I'm not feeling the right things because I understood what was happening in my body, I had an opportunity to be more present and less chaotic, which I'm sure my husband appreciates, versus like constantly kind of going in a bazillion different other directions. Does that answer your
Oh,
question?
it does. And just for you to know and anyone else who's actually watching this video, I write notes as I do this because it's always helpful for me. This is how I process. But like what you're also kind of talking about is that instead you're leaning in to how you present within your ADHD. Specifically, you're leaning in with a curiosity. And what you're doing is you just said like I get distracted if like I don't know what's going on. So instead of getting in my head about whatever's coming up for me, you've learned, especially through this approach for yourself as well, always lean in with the curiosity of the why. And it's almost like you've created like the using the sensation as your anchor, if you will, but like you've tapped into how your ADHD presents and turned it from a negative experience to a positive experience, a strength one for you, because you found like if I ask, okay, wait a minute, why am I feeling this way? And you have all that education on your anatomy, you're now intrigued, which is a dopamine high. Like it's not like, oh, shame, right? Which is something I definitely would love to talk also about with you as well, because I can only imagine, what shame can do to this process, how you even get like my head's going a million miles a minute, but I'm sure you know where I'm going with this. But I love it. I love that you were able to, without maybe even recognizing what you did, you turned something in terms of your ADHD presentation that was working against you, and you found a way through your environment to
Yeah.
set it up for your success, which is fucking awesome.
I love the way your brain works, which is why I fangirled so hard when I listened to you on the other podcast and I had to find you because I was like, the way you put things together makes so much sense, where it's
Mm,
almost like it maybe was an internal knowing, but then hearing it from somebody and you're just like, oh, wait, you get it. Like you get it.
yeah,
Like when you're like you reverse engineered it, I was like, oh my God, wait, I did. Oh, I nailed it.
you
Oh, because
did.
like, I was just, I just felt like a dead zone for so long. And I felt like I was just not ever going to have these experiences to now being like, oh my God, I can't believe I ever thought that. And
Yeah.
especially going into the shame sides of things, like when I ask clients, like, let's take a look at your own yoni. Do you want to look at mine? And I think that was one of the most transformative experiences I had. A friend of mine invited me over just to paint. She was like, let's paint vulvas. And I was like, okay, great. But in my head, I heard her say, let's paint our vulvas. And I was like, oh, I'm down. Like, that's weird, but sure. I'm the person to ask this kind of thing. And so I got there. I was like, what kind of paint are we using on our body? And she was like, what? And I was like, oh, I misunderstood. Got it. Cool. Didn't ask enough questions. And then I was like, well, we love kind of just being naked. So like, let's just do it. So like we were painting and having fun. And then I was like, oh, wait, do you want to see my yoni? And she had never seen another yoni before in real life. And so I was like, I will show anyone, let's go. And she was like, oh my God, this is so beautiful. Like I thought that mine was bad or wrong or fill in the blank.
Mm.
She also has wicked ADHD. So she was like, and for that moment, everything was calm, everything was focused. And I was like, oh wow, like it really is about connection. And I often think we get so far away from that where we're in our own heads of judging or shaming, our past experiences or what people have said, where we forget like, no, we're wonderful, miraculously beautiful humans, and we're all just in this little meat suit trying to understand how to feel a little bit more joy and pleasure as we navigate a really challenging landscape.
And I think also what you're tapping into or talking about right now is vulnerability.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of us ADHDers, and I obviously this is not a one size fits all, depending on how you grow up. But I know at least for me, a lot of my clients, I've yet to meet one client that doesn't have this experience, but vulnerability isn't something we feel safe being
No.
because we grow up in a world, especially if people like myself, and I'm going to assume you too, late diagnosed, you went your whole life basically being told like you're sucking. You're not
Yeah.
doing what you're supposed to do. And so it doesn't make sense to feel comfortable to be vulnerable. So that's just day to day. Then you think about sexuality and our experiences. And I really love it. And I think it's so beautiful that you're speaking so fluently about how normal it is for you, your experience, and other people who engage that, like, there's nothing wrong with showing each other's vulvas, yonis, it's
Oh.
not a sexual thing. It's a embrace of just like who we are. We're normalizing, we're empowering, we're supporting. And I really felt that like as you're at, I'm not a spiritual person by any means, by the way. I'm just throwing it out there, but like that I felt that one. I felt it.
We're, at least I feel in my experience, is that women are often pinned against each other, and
Mhm.
we're not encouraged to like be actually really vulnerable and open and not try to provide solutions to fix anything. It's just like, oh wow, like I can just see you in this moment and be like, yeah, no, you are enough. And every Yoni I see, I'm always just aghast because I'm like, this is so gorgeous. And every time I say something kind to a woman, they're like, what? No. And it hurts my heart so much because we weren't taught how to hate ourselves. Like
Yeah.
this is something that was just like learned over time, and like we should all love ourselves to a certain extent. And it's like, how do we get so far away from that? And how are we going to hate a part of our bodies that can also provide such joy, such pleasure? If you want to have a baby, then it can potentially do that. Like all of these miraculous
Mhm.
things, and yet we're still like, meh. Not going to talk about it, too afraid, to
Yeah.
this. So I'm like, I will lead with vulnerability and honesty all of the time. I will always share about my stuff because I feel like that's what really links us together. And there's a superpower that happens there. And I know every time a friend of mine is like, oh, yeah, no, I have this ADHD or this form of this or blah, blah. I'm like, whoa, like I get you more. I feel like I can connect with you more. And in this world, I just want to feel like actual authentic connection and
Mhm.
not so much like, oh, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, no, no, no. Like I want to get to the real goods. And I always say I'm like woo woo light. Like I'm not like I'm always into the science side of stuff. Like when I got into breath work, I was like, I need to understand what's happening in the
Mhm.
body. And it's like, oh wow, well, all of that connects in. And if we just had that information, where could we be?
Yeah, no, that makes total sense. And I see in the work I do, ADHD aside, just with sexuality and feeling comfortable within your bodies, I think the biggest killer and barrier is when you don't feel comfortable being vulnerable.
Yeah.
And what you're talking about is the need to really lean into vulnerability, trusting, and so I would also assume that this isn't going to be for everybody.
No.
There's a lot of mental health work that most likely would need to be done if you have those barriers, the fear associated with being open in such a way. Because I know you're not a mental health provider, so it's not like you're providing therapy. So it's really important for people to feel some level, I would assume, of comfort within their mental health and their ability to share that vulnerability. But I can only imagine how empowering it is when you can feel that level of vulnerability. And I'll be completely honest, sex therapist here, mom, I still struggle with my vulnerability with my sexuality. I'm still unlearning all the messages that was fed down my throat about how I should present as a heterosexual woman, what sex was supposed to look like, what my body. I can't tell you how many jokes about roast beef,
Oh my
cookies,
God.
or it looks like an axe. Put like really, really.
Unbelievable.
And when I got into this field, I remember I was sitting in a Starbucks and it was like female anatomy, and I had my headphones on and I was on one of those long tables, and I looked in and I was like, that's what that is. I had no idea. And I'm like 25 at that age, 26, I can't even remember. I was like, what is so wrong? What are we doing wrong that I was just learning something? And I'm going down like a total tangent path
I
right
love
now.
it.
But like, I guess going back to this, because this is like, I'm feeling so calm as we're talking about this. Like, this just feels so nice for me. Everyone who's listening, if this is like, oh, I don't know, this is kind of intimidating, that's cool. Like, lean into it. Why is it intimidating? That's like where my therapeutic brain goes. But I think to myself, like, what about the people, and I think more for like us ADHDers when I'm saying this, like, who have busy lives, who are overstimulated all the time. Like, how do you find ways to go about this in ways that work for that type of experience? Did that make sense? I hope
Yeah,
that.
definitely. I mean, the initial like experience is 3 hours. It is a long amount of time. But also, I think all of us need to be reminded that it's okay to take time for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And then after you've had the initial experience, it's not like every time it's 3 hours. I can sit with my own body. I have a 15-minute morning practice where I bring my hands onto my vulva because I want to continue to have the blood flow go there. I have 15 minutes. I spend hours on Instagram. I have time. I just it depends on where do I actually want to put my attention? How do I want to kind of connect into it? And am I going to make myself a priority? And do I think that I'm worthy and deserving of it? And sometimes it's no.
Can I ask really quickly? Because you
Yeah.
brought blood flow up twice, and I know the importance of blood flow. But
Yes.
just for people who are listening, why is bringing blood flow to
Yeah.
our yonis so important?
So if we're thinking about like a penis, right? When they're soft, there's no sex happening. You don't want to jam that in. That's not going to work. They have blood flow. It goes there. It gets to be hard. It gets to do its thing. Women, we take, or vulva havers, takes a little bit longer. And most individuals are not spending a correct amount of time, correct, right? Or a longer duration to allow their bodies to really kind of warm up and have everything be ready and online in order to have penetration, to have the right lubrication. Basically, we're not ready to have sex all of the time simply because we have a hole.
Yeah.
It needs this kind of like, okay, great, we're going to intentionally do this. We're going to bring that there. I always ask clients when I first start working with them, like, what's your favorite lube? And they're like, what? And I'm like, what is that? Like, I want you to always be using lube anytime you touch your body
Yep.
because that kind of raw sensation can hinder you from feeling more pleasure. And even something as simple as that, people are like, oh my God, what? Like lube's a bad word. And I'm like, no, no, lube's gonna be your best friend. You're gonna love it. But then you're intentionally setting that time where you're like, okay, your mind and your body are gonna come together and they're gonna send the necessary blood down. So then things can become more plump. And the realm of like, if we need a penis to get erect to have, penetrative intercourse, we're gonna want like a plush pussy in order to feel a little bit more and bring all those nerve endings online because what sits at the tip of the penis kind of spreads throughout our anatomy in a different way. So it just takes a little bit longer for everything to be like, hello, here we are. Yes. Oh my God. I think
For
mine.
anyone listening and can't see, I totally just pulled out my anatomical sized clitoris. But
I
yes,
love it.
I love
I
that.
love
I
it.
love that. I love that. And I know I totally got off the beaten path. I asked a question and then I was like, ooh. Um, the 3 hours though, and I promise I'm going back to the
You're great.
original question. But when you had talked about 3 hours, I also maybe am assuming this, but like I feel like that may also actually be ADHD friendly in some capacity because I can only imagine how you're jumping from thing to thing to
Yes.
thing to thing, which is working with an ADHDer's brain, not
Yes.
against it. Because when you hear 3 hours, like that could be like, what? But like, that's where my mind was going. I
Yeah.
was like, that probably actually seems really ADHD friendly.
If we were sitting here and I was talking at you for 3 hours, you would want to murder me. No, thank you. There are so many different interactive things that we do. There is a cacao ceremony that we build in because we're going to have, the chocolate allowing our body, like our heart center space. We're going the cacao route, but then also it's going to give sugar into our body so we can stay alert. We do a tea ceremony at the end to continue to balance out the nervous system. We have heaps of like, we're touching points. We're talking about different parts of our lives. We're sharing intimately. And then the hands-on portion, I generally want even more time with people and quite regularly people be like, can we extend by a half hour? I'm like, hell yeah, we can. Let's go. And people, because everyone's always like, oh my God, 3 hours is a long time. It's not. It flies by like this. And then you're like, oh my gosh. So we talk a lot, we move a lot, we're into like stretching our bodies because our hips also have to be open. Like so many different things play into this where it's much more than just, coming and be like, okay, great, I'm just gonna sit here and listen to you. No, we're gonna have fun.
That's awesome. And that's a very inviting thing too. Like the advocacy, the empowerment, the excitement around this in empowering other people that are willing and wanting to engage in this. I mean, that's freaking awesome. And I guess then that goes back to my original question before I jump from thing to thing to thing. When it does come to a lot of us who, like for myself, I have 3 kids. I have a business, I'm a professor, I'm working on a dissertation. We have house responsibilities. I hear all this. This sounds really great, but like realistically, how does someone like myself, even who has that crazy busy life, invest in this?
You book it out.
Okay.
I had a mom, what I think she had 4 or 5 kids, flew here, running 2 businesses herself. Her husband, not the most helpful, but it was a priority to her. So she made it a thing. And she was like, okay, great. Can we book this out 7 months in advance? I said, yeah, baby girl, let's go. And then we just see what happens. And also, like, you always reserve the right to say, I've changed my mind. I don't want to do this. But if something's important enough to you, you're going to find the time to dedicate to it. And in the grand scheme of things, 3 hours is not that long.
Mhm.
And so if you're like, okay, great, I can think about 6 weeks time from now, I see this gap that's available here. Because also, you don't know how much understanding your body and the way things are functioning are also going to be impacted afterwards. And I think that's something that people often forget. It's not just like you're in that experience and then it's done and it's over. Like there's going to be long lasting kind of side effects and benefits and everything that gets to happen from it. But I just feel like I also was really busy when I had my first Yoni massage, and I also didn't know what a Yoni was. And I just said, screw it, let me sign up for this, let me invest in it and see what happens. And I had no expectations on it. I simply was like, ah, nothing else has worked anyways. And I showed up and I did the darn thing. And thankfully, since then, I've had hundreds of hands inside of Yonis. And I'm like, other people are finding a way to come around this. And like, as like we started, most of my clients are ADHD humans.
Yeah.
And so if it's important enough, you're going to figure out a way to do it. And I'm always the most relaxed with it because it is such a sensitive topic. And I've had people message me the morning of being like, man, I can't do it. And I'm like, okay, great. Let's look forward. Let's find another time. What's going on with you? Do you need a touch point right now? Because I think having agency and being able to say, ah, man, this isn't for me right now is also really important. And then hearing a facilitator affirm that, like, I don't know. I need more of that in my life.
Yeah.
I need less guilt and shame when I decide something isn't right for me. And I need more people to champion me when I say, man, I'm going to try this really scary thing. And they're like, okay, cool, I got your back. So I ask people to hold me accountable for things when I sign up for them and I'm scared to do them. And I just, once it's in my calendar, it's in my calendar. And there's
Yeah.
prep work that also gets you ready for all of that too. And like manageable prep work. I'm not talking like you're sitting in meditation for an hour a day kind of stuff. I'm like, no, we're going to start to understand your body. Because also, if you don't know your full body yes and no, I'm not putting my hands on you. Not doing it.
Fair. And I think also, like, as you were talking about this, which I totally agree with, when there is something of importance, we are deficits aside, like, there is a different relationship we can have with that motivation. But I also, as you were talking about that, I can't tell you how many people have come to me and I'm usually their fourth or fifth stop. I'm not their first. And so I think also one of the reasons I wanted to have you on is because I know there's a lot of people that don't know anything about this stuff. And so there are probably people out there that want to prioritize, but they don't necessarily know what options they have.
Yeah.
And even with a busy life, when like, also, like, how you've just also outlined it, you're outlining it not in a black and white mentality, which us ADHDers can struggle with. Like, when something doesn't look like it's going to end or be the way that we think and want it to be, okay, hands up, I'm not even bothering. You create such a fluidity to the experience where it's like, okay, like, it's fine, and I think that also is so important for anyone listening right now who has ADHD. And this is like oh, whoa, this is a thing. Like, but it's not just a thing. It's truly very supportive, it sounds like, to an ADHDer's experience, depending on how you're presenting within your ADHD.
Yes.
And so this has been like invaluable in
Hmm.
regards to at least my own mindset. But I already know a couple of people that I know in my own little personal realm that is going to nerd out on this episode and find such value to it and be like, oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Um, Now, really quickly, can you let everybody know like where to find you? Obviously, I'll put all of your information in the description. But where can people find you? How to
Sure.
get in touch?
I also just wanted to add on there, like that's why we spend time talking before we ever get into anything, because you're gonna tell me what your stuff is, and I'm gonna
Yeah.
take a lot of notes, and I'm gonna learn, I'm gonna understand, I'm gonna formulate a way that is gonna feel really supportive and safe for you because we're not all the same. No, rarely are people as psychotic as I am, where I'm like, I hear about this thing, I say, okay, cool, I'm gonna sign up for it, and then I'm gonna do it. That is not normal.
That's not psychotic. That's our impulsivity. Yeah, let's get it
Thank
straight.
you.
Not always
Thank
a
you.
bad thing.
Thank
It
you.
led
Thank you
you
for
here,
being
didn't
kinder to me. Yes.
it?
But like that's why like there is all of this connection point. And I think that's really important because I can talk in a way and somebody might be like, oh my God, that's not gonna work for me. And I'm gonna be like, okay, amazing. You let me know, or we're gonna figure it out and we're gonna talk a whole lot because I don't ever shut up. But that's the joys of that. So, anyways, if you're like, hey, I want to learn more about this lady, I am Sarah Silverstein on Instagram. Good luck spelling that. Find it in the tag or sarahsil.com, SARASIL.com. And I also have a virtual membership where I'm constantly putting out different workshops. Everything is basically ADHD focused because that's how I function. And serendipitously, the other like 60 gals in there are real similar too. So the many different meditations and tappings and breathing and movement and you name it. I'm like, yo, how can we continue to help our brains and our bodies connect back up so we can find more pleasure and joy inside and outside of the bedroom?
That's really awesome. Now, I'm going to totally put you on the spot, and I did not tell you I was going to ask this question, so I apologize. But if you could leave people with one thing, one bit of advice or support, what would you say to the people listening to this today?
Hmm. When you said that, the first thing that came into my mind was that like pleasure is in your hands. That
I
is
like that.
up to you to decide what you want to do with it, and whatever you choose is right.
Mm.
And just because we're talking about different things doesn't mean that we're wrong or anything. It's just like, no, you have autonomy. You get to make that decision and allow your pleasure to be in your hands so you can make the decision of what path you want to go down.
Oh, I love that. And I think that's why I also like to throw it in, sprinkle it in, because you went with what you felt, and that was just awesome. Thank you so much for being with me today. I learned so much. I also enjoyed this so much.
Yeah.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. I hope everyone else also enjoyed this. Again, all the information on Sarah is listed in the description below. Um, Reach out, follow her. She is awesome. And until next time, everybody, thank you again, Sarah.
Thank you.
Huge thank you again to Sarah for sharing her energy, her insights, and for helping us see that our pleasure, our bodies, and our ADHD don't have to be in conflict. They can actually work together. We just have to learn how to listen. If this episode gave you something to think about, or even made you feel a little more seen in your body and brain, do me a favor. Subscribe to ADHD Realities wherever you listen, whether that be Apple or YouTube, all the places. Leave a review if you vibed with the episode. It seriously helps more neurodivergent individuals find us. And if you know someone who needs to hear this convo, text it to them, tag them, carrier pigeon it over. Just get it in their hands. And if you're not already following me on Instagram, go do that now, at Borneman Psychotherapy. That's where the real behind the scenes chaos happens. Thanks for hanging out with me today. Remember, you're not too much, your body isn't broken, and your pleasure is valid, even if it doesn't look like anyone else's. Until next time, as always, it's all about setting your environments, your relationship, and your sex up for success in a way that works with your brain and not against it.